Hi, this is John Walker, and I'm going to be showing you today a little bit about how to add your own custom hover effects using only CSS. And so I'm going to be doing this as a part of the ongoing series showing you how I'm customizing my own WordPress theme. So today I've got my blog index, and what I want to do is add a hover effect to the blog listing. So um, I've got the dev version up right now. Um, each blog post is going to be marked up as an article, and that article is going to have a thumbnail which can be clicked to lead to the post. So that image is linked. And then there's also an H2, that's the post title. The day the post was written is in a paragraph, and then finally a little excerpt from the post. And so what I want to do first is kind of picture what I want my hover effect to do, and it might help sketch a few ideas out. Look around the internet for inspiration and get creative. Today I'm going to be keeping it pretty simple, but really there's just no end to what you can do. So what I'm going to be doing today is I want this to be kind of a tile, and this tile I want to have these parts positioned within my image, and maybe add some field or some color to some of these fields to liven things up a little bit and add a little depth. And so I'm going to be doing that using positioning. Um, so what I need to do is I need to use absolute positioning on the things that I want to move. So I want to move this, this, and this. And absolute positioning, it takes that element and it puts it where you want it based on the nearest position ancestor. So if there is no positioned ancestor, it's just going all the way to the body and putting it based on where the body is. So for this to work right, we want it to be based on the article. So I've already added a position of relative to the article, and I've also set the overflow to hidden. So if anything flows outside of the box containing this article, then it's going to be hidden. All right, and the parts that I want to move are the H2 and these paragraphs. So I'm going to show you in the dev tools how this works. So first I need to get a suitable selector. I want something that's going to be specific enough that it doesn't do this to every H2, but so that I can use it over and over again also. So I only want this to work on the blog page, and the blog has a class the blog page has a class on the body automatically added in a blog, just added in by WordPress. And so I'm going to start. I want this to be only a child of the blog, and I don't want every H2 because there's some pages in some situations that if I get widgets and things down in the sidebars where I don't want those H2s to do the hover effect, I only want these H2s to do it. So I'm going to be a little more specific, and I'm going to add article as well. So I'm selecting any H2, any H2 that is a child of the article, that is a child of a body with, or of an element with a class of blog. All right, and I'm going to add my absolute position and see what happens. All right, and you notice it looks kind of strange all of a sudden. these things have moved up, and this is just sitting kind of over top of everything. And so what it's done here is it's taken that H2 and taken it out of the normal flow of the page. And now it can be positioned where we want it using other properties. So the properties would be top, bottom, left, and right. So I'm going to position this using the top property, and let's give it a top, and we're offsetting this from the top. Let's just set it 1 rem. Oops. Yeah, let's set this top 1 rem from the top. So that takes that element and puts it 1 rem from the top. And then I can do the same thing with the left. I'm going to take it and put it 1 rem to the left. If I didn't want it on the left, I could put it on the right too. I would just put a property of right and it moves it to the right. But for this case, I'm going to leave it on the left. Also going to make that a little bigger. So let's make that font size a little bigger. Let's go 2 rem. Makes it pop a little bit more. And then we're going to also add text shadow just to lift it up off the page a little bit. So text shadow. And then I'm going to set my offset. So this is my X offset. Actually, let's do 1 pixel. 3 pixels. This says how far the Y axis is offset. The third number is going to set the blur. So it's going to spread 3. And then I'm going to set a color RGBA. I like RGBA because you can use different levels of opacity pretty easily. So I'm going to use our base black here to 1016, and then I'm going to set the opacity using a decimal between 0 and 1. Usually like to go pretty light on the shadows, so it gives it a nice soft shadow. Just gives it a little bit of lift off the page, kind of gives it the illusion of depth. And so that's looking pretty good. Now let's go over here and move this date. And so for now, I'm going to kind of style this to be how I want it to look when the hover is actually taking place, just for the sake of showing you. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to have to select the right selector, right? So I'm going to, this one has a class attached to it, so this one should be fairly easy to select. Let's just go ahead and leave it date. And really, that's not a great class name, so I might have to go back a little later and clean that up. But for now, it'll do. And we're going to set the position to absolute. And then again, we're going to set the top and other properties. And I've already gone and decided how I want this to look a little earlier. So, oops, right here. So I've already decided that I want this to be 60% up from the bottom. And so I'm going to just go ahead and go back, and let's put that 60% from the bottom. Bottom 60%. You can use different types of units here, rem, percent, pixels. I think even VH, VW also work. But for this, I'm just going to use percent because I want that to be able to generally stay in this 2/3 region. And then this you can't see very well, so I'm going to give it a background. And again, I've already set the background previously, so I'm just going to take a look at what I did here. And let's just copy that over. Background, here's my color, and let's see how it looks. It's getting better, but it's really tight on there, so we're going to add some padding around it as well. So now I'm going to go padding, and let's see, I had this set up for 3/4 of rim on the top and the bottom, and then on the sides 3 rim. Kind of makes it extend a little bit out. And then we're going to add a little curve to this. So I want these corners right here and right here to curve inwards. So I'm going to add a border radius. Oops. The border radius property. And normally if you set just one value on the border radius, let's just say 10 pixels, it changes all of these and it rounds this by 10 pixels. But I can also set each one individually, and that's what I'm going to do. So starting from the left top corner, I'm going to set that one to 0 because I want that one to stick straight up to the edge, and then 10 for the next one, which would be the top right. And then bottom right, I want also to be 10 pixels. And this last one on this corner, I'm going to set to 0 pixels. And that gives me a pretty nice looking shape right here. And I can do something very similar on our guy right here. Now this one does not have a class set up to it, so we're going to have to find a different way to select this. I could go back into the PHP and add a class, but it's less challenging. Let's have a little fun with it. So we're going to do this only on the blog again, and we only want this to be an article. And so if you notice this paragraph, the way it's set up, it's always going to be the last paragraph in the article. So I'm going to use last child. So this is selecting any paragraph that is the last child of an article that is the child of a page with a class and blog. Alright, and I'm going to do pretty much the same thing. This time, let's use the top property. We're going to set that 32%. Gives, whoops, something. Oh, there. Gotta add a position first. If I set this property without a position, it does nothing. So let's set our position to absolute. Oops. Absolute. And now it goes where I want it to go. And then I'm going to have this one. I want this one to come in from the right. So it's going to be anchored onto this right wall here. So let's set this one with a property of, actually we're going to use the property of left to push it to off from the left side a little bit. So let's push that 3 rem off, and it moves it over 3 rem. And then I want this to span all this way. So from this end of this W all the way across. And so this, we know this distance. It's all of this minus this little offset here. So I'm going to do width. I'm going to do the calc function, 100% minus the offset, which was 3 rem. And you can't really see it as it is right now without any color, but this is now spanning all the way across there. And speaking of colors, add a background color. And I'm just going to go with black, transparent black, to 10, 16, and we'll make this a little more opaque. All right, so that there's a little bit of see-through property to it, but not too much. And that's still looking pretty weird. Let's add a little bit of padding. And I set this earlier to 3 rem and 2 rem. Okay, looking pretty good. And one more thing, let's do like we did on the last one, add a border radius. So I'm going to go starting at the top left. I'm going to add 10 pixels to the top left, 0 to the top right, 0 to the bottom right, and 10 pixels to the bottom left. And that looks pretty good. Now, the one last thing that I noticed about this, because of the way in which this is ordered in the HTML output, this is stacking on top of this, and I don't like that. I want the green part right here to be stacking on top of there, so I'm going to use a z-index. I could again change the source code and put this on bottom by changing the order, but we'll do z-index for now. So I'm going to set a z-index on this paragraph. We want the paragraph to be lower, so we'll say 50. And then I'm going to have to go back over here and set a z-index. If I want it to be above, I've got to set a higher z-index. So, oops, I also have to set the property z-index, and we'll just say 60. And I could put that at any number above it. I like to give a little bit of space between the numbers, and I'll show you an example. So if I go down, back down to 50 or below, it goes back below. But once I cross that 50 threshold, it goes back above. I give myself a little buffer in case later on I want to add something in between those two layers. So, all right, that's looking pretty good. And so this is how I want this to look at the very end. So in the next episode, I'm going to show you about how to make this actually move so that it's actually a hover effect. So in the meantime, make sure you keep on checking out the blog and keep checking the site for more updates because it's still a work in progress. Thanks.